I'm radio and television host Jimmy Church, and I am here to uncover the truth about some of life's biggest mysteries. If this is revealed, everything has to be rewritten. My guest today is Daniel Sheehan, a Harvard Law School constitutional litigation attorney at the heart of the pivotal legal cases and social movements of our generation, including disclosure.
He stated flat out that the government was in possession of an intact, non-human origin spacecraft, and that there was biological evidence of non-human intelligence.
As always, MUFON field investigator Josh. Josh, can you pull up the map?
Yeah.
Joins us to help set the scene. Join us as we dive deep to get to the bottom of some of the most intriguing questions of our time.
This is an absolutely trans-historical event that's taking place here.
Welcome to Into the Vortex. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and my guest today is Daniel Sheehan. He's a civil rights attorney that is hot on the pursuit of social justice and transparency, certainly with disclosure and the ET question. Now, the action that we've had over the last 5 years has been tremendous, but the question that I have is transparency, and where are we today with disclosure, and how are we moving forward? So, Josh, do you feel transparency? Do you feel honesty from the media and other organizations?
I think it's getting better. It's getting better, definitely. But overall, we have a lot of work to do.
Daniel, 5 years, 6 years of pretty rapid stuff, but I don't think anything compares to what has happened over the last couple of months, where we thought that December of 2017 and the days of disclosure that were there, it was about as good as it was going to get, and it was pretty big. Over the last couple of months, we've had a hearing in Congress. We've had a presentation in front of the Congress in Mexico. We've had the recent NASA committee put together for UAPs. But all of this has been in the interest of transparency with the public. Is it truly transparent?
It's getting toward it right now. That, as I mentioned, there's legislation now that is being drafted in Congress right now to increase the transparency. The primary motive of the Congress at this particular moment is to extract all of the UFO and ET, or what they call non-human intelligence information, out of the executive branch and the military contracting corporations, and get it transferred to Congress, to get it put into the Senate and House Intelligence Committees so that they can get it and evaluate it. And there's a presumption in a new statute they're going to pass in December to get the vast bulk of that out to the public within 180 days. Then there's going to be some that are going to be kept, they say postponed, but they have to have a strict schedule pursuant to which all of that information is going to be disclosed as well. And ultimately, only the president will be able to make a decision to retain or continue to postpone a given piece of information. But the whole presumption of the new statute is going to be to expose it to the world.
We just had the hearing in Congress. Pull that up, Josh. Pull up Tim Burchett and DeLuna. Now, here we have one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of disclosure, and certainly for Congress to put something like this together. And it was pretty aggressive, and I think that we need that. Mm-hmm. But then we had David Grusch, and his testimony and the statements that he said were dramatic.
Yes.
Non-human biologics were suddenly part of the vernacular, and this is part of the conversation, and recovery of craft. And
intact extraterrestrial.
Addresses and everything. These were big revelations.
Yeah.
But the questions coming back from Congress seem to be on point. But what about the transparency on this? They seem to be taken by surprise.
Well, the fact is that virtually all the people that were there, it was a subcommittee. It was the National Security Subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee. I was there in talking with the staff people when we were doing it. And they had not expected David Grusch to tell them what he did in the open. He told them flat out that based upon his role in being an official in a position overseeing and investigating the UFO issue or the UAP issue, he stated flat out that we were in possession, the government was in possession of an intact, non-human origin spacecraft. That's how he characterized it. And that there was biological evidence of non-human intelligence connected to that craft. Now, one would have thought that that was going to end up on the front page of the New York Times the next day, but it didn't. But the fact is, millions of people saw it. That went out all across the country, and it was rebroadcast and rebroadcast. I was talking with Dave just before he gave the testimony, and then just after, and I've been talking to his lawyer, and I was talking to the members of the Oversight Committee. So it's clear that they want to get that information, even that he wasn't able to give them the details. They said, for example, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she said, where do we go to find this craft? And he said, I can't tell you that in open session. But he agreed he would give it to them. So I met with the staff, I met with AOC and with Jamie Raskin right after the hearing and said, we can get you hooked up with David Grusch to get to the first person witnesses. He was a second party witness saying he's talked to them who have said they've been there with the craft, so that they need to get the names of the people that have been there, put their hand on it.
Let me jump in, because that's a very important point. This is a world issue. This isn't just an American issue for sure. But when you say these things in public, that you have the addresses and you're going to provide the locations of this and you're going to go ahead and do this to the committee, doesn't that tip the hat to the corporations and anybody that is working in a special access program to move and suddenly have a shell game where you can take the craft and move it to another location or to another country? And then we lose that transparency, and anything that would be presented is nullified. Isn't that a concern?
Well, one of the things that you'll know during my career in all of this, having been involved in the Watergate burglary and the Pentagon Papers, et cetera, the effort to conceal and lie and manipulate after the public knows about a thing gets the people in more trouble than the issue itself. The cover-up is worse than the event sometimes. And so if they start doing that kind of thing and get caught doing it, it's going to be like, hiding the papers after the Congress has subpoenaed them. So there's a parallel track in understanding what it is they have, and if they try to conceal it or lie about it, what is going to be done about that? And so the new statute that is being drafted has got subpoena power, so that the Congress can actually subpoena the actual persons and take depositions from them and say, did you have it at the time we notified you? Did you move it anywhere? If you did, where did you move it? Et cetera. So that there's an inquisitional process that is now starting. And Congress is going to extract this information from the executive branch and from the private corporations, these military contractors, and that they not only have subpoena power, but they have the power to hold them in contempt. And what they've done very extraordinarily in the new statute that is going to be passed, they have actually exercised eminent domain on behalf of the United States government to control and seize and take custody of all of this material, including the craft.
Now, I have a copy of the new provision. Josh, you've got a copy of it there too as well. This is a really big deal.
It is a government mandate that all of these agencies turn over all the material they have, every email, every internal memo, every phone call, every audio tape or film, everything has to be turned over to this new committee. And the president is going to appoint 9 people to survey all of this information and release it to the public. That's what their job is. And it's over a 7-year period under the statute.
Now, it is literally titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure. What does that actually mean? And are we talking about actual transparency?
Well, there is one provision in the statute. This is like a 25-page statute that is going to go into the National Defense Authorization Act. And there's one provision that allows the agency that possesses the information to apply for, to this 9-person committee, apply for the authority to postpone the public disclosure of this. Otherwise, it's going to get disclosed within 180 days from the receipt of the information. So that there's this heavily operational presumption here on behalf of disclosure to the public. And it's the statute. And they have subpoena power and they have investigative power. This committee is going to have, it's a 9-person committee that is mandated by the statute.
Who's going to assemble the committee?
The president nominates 9 people, and then it goes to the Congress. And it goes to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and it goes to the Senate Homeland Security Committee. And then if they approve of the particular nominee, it goes to the full Senate. This is like Supreme Court justices.
Right. Okay, so who assembles the proposed list of nominees?
There are 8 of us. There are 8 entities that are designated in the statute, one of which is the majority leader of the Senate and the minority leader of the Senate, the majority leader in the House, the Speaker of the House, and the minority leader, the Secretary of Defense, and our group, which is called the UAP Disclosure Foundation, is how it's referred to in the statute. It's actually the New Paradigm Institute that is the 501c3 public interest organization working with such groups as the Sol Foundation, which Gary Nolan is putting up over at Stanford. We're going to be surveying the 501c3 public interest organizations to find out who they might recommend. So we're going to recommend a list of 18 people, 2 persons for each of the 9 slots, a primary and a backup. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Will there be an opportunity for civilians and members of our community to be involved in this? Because if transparency is the issue, we can't have a full staff of military and
That's right.
an intelligence agency spooks on this because transparency is not part of their game.
That's right.
How can we get that into this committee?
It's going to be extraordinarily important that the people that are on the committee are trusted by the president, because he's ultimately going to be the one that selects out of them all. We can, we could recommend, having the Pope on it or something, but it's up to the president, because the president nominates, and then the Senate will ratify. It's with the advice and consent of the Senate. This is just like appointing Supreme Court justices. There's going to be this tribunal of 9 people. This is an absolutely trans-historical event that's taking place here.